Welcome to the Anti-Noise Experience, podcast endurance noise and random musings. It's Sunday, August 23rd, 2020. It's a nice, steamy, hot, smoky Bakersfield afternoon. Definitely going to go out later this afternoon, but right now it's a little bit too, as you can tell with my cough. So, from time to time, I get questions from listeners. I kind of call this the AAA, Ask Andy Anything. This question was on weight vest, and it says, curious on your thoughts on weighted vest. In my case especially, my treadmill session is a good 7 months long. I have high-end walk-specific walking treadmill that has a max speed of 4 miles an hour. That max is fine as I never race faster than that in my target races. Many of my workouts on a treadmill sit right at 4 miles an hour for 5 or so hours. In my treadmill races, I often spend a lot of time at 4 miles per hour as well. If I didn't have the speed available to increase intensity for harder workouts, would it be a benefit to add a little weight onto my back? And, you see it's often the case. You see athletes, Marshall Ulrich, who is going to be on the 24th. I think he's starting tomorrow. He's going to do his 30th crossing of Badwater. Of course, he's become fairly well known now because he's on the Eco Challenge with the team Stray Dogs. So he's getting lots of media coverage. And he was famous for dragging the tire. And now everybody wants to drag a tire instead of just put in the regular training, which I think they don't realize that Marshall was putting in that. And that was kind of the icing on the cake. He made sure he was taking care of the cake, and I think a lot of people just want to do the icing, the cool, fun, sexy stuff. Ooh, look at me, social media, podcasts type of stuff, dragging a tire. So this isn't about dragging a tire. This is more about weighted vest. I'm just never a big fan of doing anything that is going to alter your form, that you're gonna because you're trying to stay healthy, and so if you're dragging something or carrying something, it's going to change up the way you move. And you have to look at it in terms of your race. In your race, do you have to wear a pack? So, like if you're a trail runner, yeah, you should train with a pack because you're going to be wearing a pack in a race. But if you're doing a multi-day loops like this individual, you don't really need to be carrying anything. So then it's just a matter of like making the sport harder. Now, he's a walker, and walking technique is huge. That's one of the reasons I can't really walk races, is because my technique keeps me from getting faster. When I run, it's my lungs. My heart and lungs just won't let me go to a certain speed. And you can tell that by my heart rate. But when I'm walking, it's very hard to get my heart rate over 110 on flats. And it just doesn't, because my technique just keeps me from going really fast. And in fact, that's one of the reasons I tell people a lot of times on recovery days to walk, because it's really hard to get your heart rate up high and really push yourself a lot. I'm sure if you really worked on the technique like those race walkers, you might be able to get that point. So, a weighted vest, it wouldn't be terrible. Ian Sharman, I have a link in the show notes. If you're a Patreon person, you can see the show notes for these shows. In fact, it's only $1 to be a fan of the podcast and the YouTube channel on Patreon. So, he has a pretty good article talking about wearing a weighted vest because it does add some, stress to the body. And that's fine and everything. But I think if you really want to there's two things you could do. There's another article that talks more about heat training and how often the East Africans, especially the Kenyans, very rarely are running and training in shorts and a t-shirt. You don't see them out there running in a pair of shorts. They're wearing sweats often, and they only strip down when they're doing really hard workouts once or twice a week. And so the thing that's kind of nice about wearing all the sweats is, one, you're going to build up heat and get used to training when it's hot or being hot and uncomfortable. And two, it's like weight on your entire body. So you're wearing sweats, sweat tops, sweat bottoms. It's just kind of weight all around the body. So it's kind of making you run properly. But you're just kind of like got a fat suit on, in a way. So that's kind of the thing. There was a famous runner back in the 70s and 80s, Benji Duran, and he was notorious for running with lots of sweats on. And then, of course, when he was racing, he wore as little as possible. He was the original guy cutting holes in his singlets way before Jim Walmsley ever thought about it. In fact, Jim Walmsley probably wasn't even born when Benji Duran from Georgia was doing that. But he would train year-round in sweats and all kinds of gear. And then when he raced, he would wear as light gear as possible. So wearing a weighted vest, it's not the best idea, I think, because, again, you're not, what are you going to use one in a race? No. Then why are you, why carry one around if it's just going to make it harder. The key thing is, like I said, this person's a walker, and to a point, and even if you're a runner, there's an article, and I talked about it in the podcast previously, about, you can only go so fast, and then your form starts to deteriorate, and then you can get injured. So, the best way to increase the difficulty of a workout is do, again, like what the East Africans do, and many training groups here in America do, is hit the hills. Because when you hit the hills, you're developing power, you're getting the heart rate up, but you're doing it in a more safe manner because you're going uphill, and it's just a safer way to increase the intensity of the workout without sacrificing your form. In fact, when you're doing hills, you want to work on your form and really power up the hill. And so that's kind of the best way to crank up your intensity is on an incline. And then he kind of said this in his thing, is that also he's training for multi-day racing, so the pace 4 miles an hour, he'd love to be able to do 4 miles an hour during the race, so that's not an issue either. Most people train too hard too often. That's that 80-20 rule, where 80% of the time it should be really easy, and you don't really need to be epic. You need to be boring, as I often say. So that's kind of the Ask Andy Anything question. Another thing that was brought to my attention recently, I haven't really seen it. I'm on the social media quite a lot, but this person told me about how he's seeing quite a few people talking about whether you should even be racing at all during this time, and or if you are racing, should you be wearing a mask during the entire race. And I kind of look at it like, whatever the rules of the race are, that's what I follow. That's kind of what I do with my day-to-day life. This is the rule here, then I take care of it there, and then there's certain situations that I avoid, crowded places and things like that. But again, I avoided that in the past. And I kind of said, look, there's been 2 Diamond League track meets recently. They're not wearing masks. They're also not in a bubble like the NBA is. So these athletes are coming from places, and they are social distancing before and after the race, but during the race, they're not. And there's not really any research showing that it happens, when you're out and about. So, maybe I'd say, if you're doing an ultra and at the aid stations, maybe pull up the mask when you get to the aid station, but to run the whole entire race with it seems a bit too much. But, it's one of those ongoing discussions that I'm sure people would like to argue about. And I think sometimes the people who are, the most adamant on either side are a small vocal minority that sometimes just gets, the majority gets kind of lost in the whole discussion. So anyways, as always, stay healthy, be boring, not epic.